Hey everybody, this is Professor Jason Snart. I'm your instructor for English 1102 online in the very short 5-week summer format here at COD. It's Tuesday morning when I'm recording this, looking out my window at kind of a gray, windy, probably rainy day. So welcome to the course. I do quite a few of these video announcements throughout the term. Most of them will actually be a capture of my screen, where I'll walk us through kind of like where we're at, important points that we've covered, upcoming due dates, that sort of thing. So nothing really major, but a nice way for us to kind of keep in touch a little bit or keep in contact. And then I like doing this first welcome one or initial one as an actual video of me, so that you know I'm a real person out here at COD. It happens. I'm a full-time professor here of English. I've taught here for, gosh, over 10 years now. I try not to think too much about that part of it. But it's been a great place for me. So anyway, I'm an actual person. You're in the course with other actual people. And one thing that you'll notice is that hopefully you'll notice, is that there's lots of opportunity in the course to kind of not, you don't want to make it like a social club, but there's opportunity for you to sort of know that I'm like a real person here who, even if we communicate via email, it's not just this sort of isolated, solitary experience that you as a student are off somewhere in cyber world and you're kind of just out there on your own. I'm here as the professor, but you'll also see lots of opportunities to interact with your classmates. So hopefully the online experience doesn't have that stereotypical and maybe even kind of false at this point sense of just being very cold and isolated and non-interactive and all that kind of stuff. So this video is sort of like the first step for me in terms of introducing myself and then hopefully welcoming you to the course so it feels like a course, like an actual class you're taking. Clearly, we're not in the face-to-face environment, but again, there's lots of opportunities for you to know that I'm here as an actual instructor and professor to answer questions, to clarify things, to provide feedback on the work that you're doing. And you also feel kind of supported, or that you're in this as a class with lots of other people who are, doing the same assignments, the same readings, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's the theory behind doing these videos, particularly this first one, which is again that video of me as opposed to just our course. So speaking of the course then, you'll notice that if you're looking at this, you're in the announcements area, which is the first place that you land when you come into our course. You'll notice at the left is our course menu with an orientation. That's the absolute first thing you should do after probably looking at this. Which is another video of me and our course. It's a little more produced, let's say, that again kind of walks you through like how our course works. So before we get to the content of English 1102, it's really important that you feel comfortable navigating through Blackboard and understanding how our course is laid out. I've tried to make it as like simple and transparent as possible, but there still has to be like kind of a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of material. There's overarching like policy information, there's grading stuff, there's obviously an area where you can contact me, you can contact other classmates, there's various resources like browser help, Blackboard help, library stuff. So I didn't want to make it overwhelming, but I obviously wanted to provide that stuff as well. So hopefully our menu is a good mix of clear but full enough that it gives you what you need. The main things for us really on an ongoing basis are fundamentally the due dates, which I'm just going to click into here. I've listed all the units that we go through and the date that they're due. Our first due date is right around the corner, Thursday, May 28th. In the 5-week format, we move just really quickly. That's like 3 times as fast as a traditional 6-week. So what might take us a week or 2 even in that longer 16-week format turns around in just a couple of days, really. You'll also notice that I've tried to keep things relatively regular past this first week, which ends up being kind of shortened. where Monday, Wednesday, Friday tends to be our regular series of steps. When there's a slightly longer period, you'll notice that it's built kind of around when our major essays are due. So it makes sense to me to move a little bit more quickly through some of the early kind of framework building units that we do before we write our first full essay, which is actually, almost halfway, if not a little bit more, into the course. So it's not like we jump right in. I'm really invested in kind of walking us through some of the most important pieces of English composition, especially for us, the research course, and then putting those pieces together in a full-blown essay rather than just kind of throwing it all at you at once. And then it's sort of hard. I mean, you wouldn't give a test in history on all the years that you cover in a course if you haven't actually covered that material yet, right? You wouldn't give the final in week 3. So we wouldn't want to do necessarily a full-blown essay in week 1 or 2 for us either, since we haven't necessarily covered all that stuff. So that's the theory behind that. I feel like I'm explaining myself a lot here, but that's okay. That's sort of the point of this. So those are the due dates. And then obviously they coordinate with that units tab, which will show you all of the folders of the various units that we work through. They're not set up exactly the same because sometimes we don't do exactly the same stuff, but generally there'll be a unit objective statement, usually pretty simple, like in this first one, we're just introducing ourselves, pretty straightforward. You are directed to the orientation if you haven't done it already, including the quiz. It's always revealing to me, not really what people get on the quiz, because that's pretty easy. But if they don't do it at all, it really shows me that you're sort of skimming through and not really paying attention to all of the requirements here, which is obviously one of the keys to being successful. People say in the online format, but kind of any format, really. So there's a couple of different assignments to complete within this first introduction unit. You build yourself a home page in Blackboard, step-by-step instructions here. It's actually pretty straightforward, and of course if you have any issues come up, you can always be in touch with me. One really important thing with this homepage, as is made clear in the assignment here, is you're introducing yourself, so a kind of informal like paragraph or a little discussion of you, but also to make sure you include at least one picture of yourself and more if you like, not just of yourself, but of like other stuff going on. So again, it's an effort not just to introduce yourself in text, but to be sort of like an actual person in the class. So you feel engaged, but also you realize that other people are part of the class as well. So when we get to later units, when we're doing like a discussion board, hopefully, maybe not in every case, but in a lot of cases, you can kind of connect a name back to a face, or to a person who like went to your same high school, or who also works at Portillo's, or whatever the case might be, or who also is in nursing, or whatever interesting connections kind of arise in these student home pages that obviously aren't really connected to, like, again, English composition per se. So you'll notice another assignment that's very similar, and it's actually a reason for this. We're using the discussion board in Unit 1 here to introduce yourself. So don't simply cut and paste the text from one to the other, but you're kind of doing the same thing. I get that. The reason is that because discussion boards will figure centrally in just about every unit that we do, it's really important for me that you use one right away in a relatively informal and low-stakes kind of situation. So you're not trying to write like an essay on the discussion board right away. You're just doing a really simple assignment. Again, if you've used these before, then this will be no problem. But if you haven't, for as kind of clean a layout as Blackboard tries to present, and for as what I hope is an organized course on my part, if you've never done it before, then it's new to you. I actually had the really eye-opening experience of doing a professional development workshop not too long ago that was online that used a different learning management system. So instead of Blackboard, it was Canvas, which is, has all the same features basically, but it doesn't really look the same. And man, for as simple as the layout was supposed to be, it honestly took me a while to figure out where things were. In fact, maybe because I knew Blackboard so well, I kept expecting that kind of an arrangement, but it never actually worked that way. So I understand what it feels like to, even if you're tech savvy in other ways, if you haven't used Blackboard before, and obviously if you're new to my course, it does take a while to figure out where do I click, what do I look for, how do the pieces kind of work together, and all that sort of stuff. So that's Unit 1, basically just an introductions unit. There's also a little questionnaire that I'm asking you to fill out. So again, one of the important pieces of being successful, just across the board, but online especially, is making sure that you cover all of the assignments here. So don't just finish one thing and think, okay, that's it for the entirety of Unit 1. Be sure you do everything that's in that unit, which again is due Thursday, May 28th. It really, has a significant impact on your grade not if you do assignments, but maybe poorly or not up to par, you miss like 5, 10 points, some marginal little thing. But if you miss it completely, right, you just don't do it, then that's all of those points that you've just lost. Our whole course is out of 1,000, so if you miss like a 10-point thing, or if you lose 10 points on an assignment, that's really not a big deal. If you do it twice, still really not a big deal. But if you miss an entire like 50-point thing, that's a big deal. If you miss 2 of those, then all of a sudden that's 100 out of 1,000, and you're looking at like a B at best. Not because the work has been like B level necessarily, but if you've missed those, then just like mathematically, that's kind of where you're at. So especially in the 5-week format where we move quickly, be sure you're really conscious of like, okay, what are the requirements for me here? What am I supposed to do in each assignment? Like, make sure you include a picture in that home page. It's cliche at this point, but time management is really the key to all of that stuff. So if you're right up against the due date and you're just doing things as quickly as possible, more than likely at some point you're going to forget something entirely, do like half the requirements in an assignment, which means at best you'll get half the points. So you want to, as best you can, be sure you're really aware of where those due dates are falling, how that kind of lines up with your schedule, and then making sure that you're not waiting until the afternoon that something is due, because in some cases you may have a significant reading or writing project to do and you just won't have time. What time you do have, you'll have to rush through the work and it just won't be your best. So time management, I know, big cliche, but sort of true still. Okay, so one last thing that I want to say here is something that's really kind of global or overarching. I have, like I said, I've been teaching at COD for over 10 years, so that's like 10 years of however many, like 2 or 3 if you count the summer semesters, 4 or 5 classes, between 20 and 30 students. Do the math, that's like thousands and thousands of students, I think. So what I've noticed is that oftentimes students in certain kinds of classes really understand the connection between, let's say, coming to class or even just like working through the material online, and then the assessment side of it. So let's take history again, just as a really simplistic example. You go to class or you work through chapters online or units online, and you learn a bunch of facts, dates that people were born, were died, important battles, when treaties were signed, whatever. But that's what you learn by going to class or by working through material online. And then, in my simplified example, you have a test. You fill in, like, so-and-so died in whatever. The Treaty of Versailles was signed in whatever. And it's just like you learn the stuff, so then you show on the assessment that you learned the stuff. It's kind of evidence that you were in class or did the work online or whatever the case might be. In other words, there's a really clear connection between the learning side of things and the assessment side of things, right? For some reason, and I don't just blame students for this, I mean, there's some like systematic thing going on. Oftentimes for English classes, we lose that connection. So we do a bunch of stuff online in all of our units here, and then you write an essay as the assessment, which is kind of different, right? Because you're not just filling in factual stuff from what we learned. So all of a sudden students will do an exercise in how a thesis statement works, and they'll do it perfect, but then write an essay and the thesis statement is like nowhere to be found. Or if it is to be found, it's horrible and in the wrong spot. So there's like a total disconnect between doing it right in the exercise piece, but then showing me you can do it right in the assessment side, right? The test or the essay. So I think maybe just because it's maybe like an essay instead of that fill in the blank or Scantron or whatever, but I really, really want to encourage you to understand that all of the stuff that we do in our course, the little pieces of things, that's what I'm looking for in the essay. So it's really no different than learning those facts and filling them in on a Scantron or a fill in the blank or, you know, whatever the case might be. There's no like magical secret way of writing an essay other than what I'm hoping to teach you in the course or what the content provides here. So too often I see this connection that the students understand in other contexts like math or history or some other class. All of a sudden in English it's like the work is there, but then the essay is way off in space and has no connection to what the work is that we're doing. The essay is your opportunity to show me that you can take all of that stuff we learned and do it, right? That it's that simple. And so when you get that wrong in the essay, it's evidence to me, the only thing I can infer is that you really didn't take the time to do it, like read the material, watch a video, do the quiz, whatever the case might be, in our actual course. So again, it's sort of like all of those cliches again. Time management, making sure that you're doing all of the work, not just skimming as fast as you can to finish the quiz or the discussion board or kind of doing a surface job. You can get through the minor point things that we do, but then when it comes to that assessment time, right, it's going to feel like this is off in space because you haven't really learned what you needed to learn. So that's kind of heavy to say right now before we even get into the course. But it's important, I think, right now, because as you get into it, one of the things you really need to keep in mind is that bigger picture. That, okay, for unit, especially 2, like once we get into the content of things, you think to yourself, well, what's the purpose of what I'm doing here? How does this fit? It may not have a lot of context in and of itself, but always keep in mind that this is pointing us towards the major essays that we're going to write. And in fact, if you look at the grading, you'll notice that the vast majority of the points are in the essays. So again, you can kind of sort of float by through discussion boards and quizzes and stuff, but if you're really not getting the stuff so you can apply it in those essays, then it's going to show and have a significant impact on your grade. So how's that for scary? Welcome to the course, everybody. The glass half full version of that, and this will be truthfully the last thing I say, is that the essays, the major point things, are not like some magical, mysterious, just you hope you get it right. Everything that we do in the course is meant to be applied in those essays. So if you're really doing that stuff, then once those big point essays come up, it's sort of like just picking up free money. It's picking up, $5 that you see on the sidewalk, because it's not something new. It's stuff you've already done. It's just piecing it all together in a slightly longer, larger assignment. So always try to keep that glass half full, that, yeah, it's the essays are worth a lot, but if you've been doing the coursework and you follow the guidelines, again, I've hopefully made it as transparent as possible, then those are easy points to get. There's no mysterious formula you have to sort of guess at and hopefully figure out. That wouldn't be fair to you. That would feel really unethical on my part. Okay, so that's a lot to digest as we get underway here. Announcements in the future will be much shorter and probably much more focused on where we're at specifically in our course. But here I am. I'm an actual person. If you have questions or concerns, by all means, be in touch with me. And I look forward to meeting all of you in the very short 5 weeks we have ahead of us.